You are listening to Spilling the Tea, a real estate podcast with Kristy Macero and Shelagh Maycheck.
Hello everyone and welcome to season 2 of Spilling the Tea. We are your hosts, Kristy Macero and Shelagh Maycheck.
Hello.
Today we will be discussing in detail all things insurance claims with no one better than property manager, realtor, and ex-insurance broker, didn't see that coming, Kyle Grant. Sitting in today as the everyday man, the one and only Jeremy Pue, from behind the camera to the front. Hello, Jeremy Pue.
Hey guys.
I'm getting really excited when I do your intro. Every time it gets like better and better.
It ramps up a little bit each time.
Yeah, well, I get excited every time you're here. So today we're talking about insurance. We know there's a certain liability when it comes to buying and selling properties. Regarding insurance, who's responsible for what and when. For the most part, it's pretty straightforward, but we don't work in a storyline of what always happens. We like to talk about what almost never happens. Unfortunately, in today's episode, it kind of happens a little more often than not with some of these situations, which we're going to dive into today. The truth is, insurance claims are on the rise. Insurance rates are on the rise. And I honestly attribute this to like more units together. Like you've got more condos, more stratas, more shared walls. And I think that's part of it. But anyway, as agents, we need to be able to provide advice on what's covered, gently nudge our clients in the right direction to the right professionals who can help assist them with their proper coverage. Because we're not insurance brokers at the end of the day.
No.
We don't do that. That's not our specialty.
Yeah.
We are going to get into the deep ocean about all of this. But until we do that, let's talk to Shelagh about her experiences. Shelagh, have you ever made an insurance claim as a homeowner?
Luckily, no.
That is lucky.
Yeah, honestly, like for the amount of places I've lived in and for how klutz I am or forgetful, and I've never made an insurance claim. However, I've come kind of close to having little oopsie doopsies. I went away on vacation one time, and it was a brand new townhouse. I'd only been living there for a few months, and I had this beautiful wine fridge in my island, and apparently I didn't close it properly before I went on vacation. And so this little unit is trying to cool my entire townhouse now.
Oh no.
Because the door is open.
Yeah.
Well, the machine couldn't keep up with that, so the back of it basically exploded. And luckily my brother was checking on the place, so he kind of told us like, hey, there's some water here. It's not a lot, but we were on our way home, so I'm like, I'll be there in an hour. I'll come check it out. And I come there and there's water running from my wine fridge under my island, down the flooring, all the way to my kitchen sink, basically. And we don't have waterproof flooring. We've got like the laminate, and it's running down the little middle of it.
Oh, and you know, like the corners,
Yeah.
they start to
Yeah.
bulge.
So my husband's ripping out the wine cooler. We're drying everything off. We've got fans out. And we're just like, is this actually going to damage everything? So we were a little bit worried, and we...
How'd you fix it?
I took out my real estate textbook.
She's like, I'm sure glad I held on to this.
So it's like the size of your head.
It was
It's
the first
super
time
heavy.
it was used.
Yeah, it's so big and heavy. And so I was putting it on the really bad spots, and luckily, like, we caught it so quickly. So I put it on the really bad spots with a 10-pound weight on top of it, and we just kept shifting it over a little bit with lots of fans and everything else, and we ended up not having like really any damage from it at all.
So the irony about using the real estate textbook is that when you get licensed, you usually hire a tutor and you don't have to open up that big textbook. So you don't really need it. So you don't really even need to hold on to it.
Yeah.
But in this situation, it saved your, ironically, your real estate.
Yeah.
Right?
And I'm like, well, this is what it's
man.
for now.
Yeah, that's, well, I'm glad that, so did you notice something in her story though? She was like, when my brother came to check on the property, like if you don't have somebody check on your property when you're out of town, or like there are some insurance policies that say you have to have somebody in every 3 days. Kyle, you can probably speak a little bit better to this. Do they have to come in every?
It really depends on the policy.
Okay.
I've seen some that are 3 days, some that are 7. It really depends on the policy wordings themselves. And the reason for that is that, let's say you have a small leak like that and you catch it after a day or two. Then you're just talking flooring. Once you have an active water leak, and I talked to a restoration guy today actually about that. You have 48 hours before mold starts to grow.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a full 48 hours.
It's time sensitive.
It is time sensitive.
Right.
Not only that, your floor was saved,
Yeah.
but when you're talking about floor on a main floor of a townhouse, it's expensive, but it's not the townhouse. As soon as, if you let that sit for 2 weeks and it's warm,
Oh, yeah.
you're taking all the drywall out. All your belongings are toast. You'll come in and it'll just be black.
So basically,
And your insurance,
Yeah.
they'll have some stern words for you.
It's not like the appliance stopped working either.
Right.
I left it open.
Yeah. Well, hard to prove anything.
I
really,
mean,
but
it just exploded on its own.
yeah. I mean,
if you're my insurance adjuster, don't.
Don't watch this one.
I haven't had any claims for insurance, but last summer I got a call in the middle of the day, and it was the property manager of my home in Kelowna, and it's tenanted up and down. And the property manager said, "Kristy, we just got notified by your tenants that they are being evacuated due to wildfire." And I thought, okay, like they're always so far away, but we did buy a nice new home on the top of a bluff back in Greenbelt, which is basically like fire food. And we opened up the little map to see where the fire lines were and where the evacuation lines were. And there was an afternoon where I was watching the fire map, and I remember calling my husband and being like, pretty sure our house is either gone or it's next. Like, we had other people in the neighborhood we knew that sent us their Ring doorbells of there was like 6 fire trucks that had gone up the street, and they apparently had clipped. My husband actually ended up getting to go into that zone through work because he got helicoptered out they thought he had to go rescue firefighters behind the lines and stuff. So he ended up going up there, and he saw that the firefighters had actually put sprinkler systems like hooked onto the roof of the house, like right onto the gutter. So I, at that point, was like, okay, well, I know I got insurance. Like, I know I got good insurance. Did I get good insurance? But like, I didn't read every single word of the policy. And like, what happens when the house burns down? Like, I still pay the mortgage, but like, my tenants pay the rent? And like, how does that work?
Yeah.
And
I like, how much is it? Do I have a water deductible? Okay, yeah, sign here. Good. I'm good.
right.
Totally.
So after that happened, I emailed my insurance broker, who's awesome, and I had a bunch of questions because I thought my house burned down. Like, I was pretty sure it had burnt. So, and it's like, it's not, I don't have an emotional attachment to that property. So at the end of the day, it's dollars and cents to me. But it really displaced a lot of people. And then I was thinking, do my tenants have insurance? But they had to because it was part of the contract. So you just try to do your due diligence along the way. But I feel like you don't really read those policies until you're faced with having to read them.
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, when was the last time that you read Jeremy, when the last time you read your insurance policy?
When I initially set it up with our new broker, I read through it. But we've been in our house for...
Did you actually read the wordings, or did you just look at the little piece of paper they give you?
No, it was like a
Is there more than one
massive
piece of
document.
paper?
Yeah, it should be like
wow.
it should be like
Yeah.
50 to 100
Yeah.
pages.
What?
Yeah, it was a
yeah.
massive document.
Yeah.
So
I haven't read that.
and
Yeah.
but
You have the deck page.
I
Oh.
read through that because I know my wife doesn't.
Oh.
So I'm like, one of the two of us should be aware.
You're like,
of
this is
what's
my
happening.
job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Have you ever had to file? See, I've got fire on the brain now.
Yeah.
Have you ever said fire? No, just kidding. Have you ever had to file an insurance claim?
Only one time in my 20s. I tried to. So I was playing in a band.
He's so cool.
And so we had 3 of the members, one of them being me. We had loaded all the gear up for the gig. Mm-hmm. So our lead singer, after the gig, was like, it was his van. He was like, you guys all go home. I'll unload everything. And he took the van home, went inside for a little while, went back outside, and all of the gear was gone. He was such an asshole. We didn't like him before that happened.
Yeah.
And then that happened.
You're
And
no
we were
longer the lead
we were
singer
like-
of our
Yeah, we
band.
were like, no bueno. No bueno. Not good.
They wrote a song about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
They couldn't.
yeah, we
Nice. Wow. A little savage. But yeah.
that was all time. That was so good.
Oh.
So a large portion of that gear was mine. and it was insured under our house insurance.
Oh,
Oh, good.
So I tried to file a claim. Unfortunately, when they came to look at the van, even though they broke in through the back doors, the lock on the side door of the van was busted, so nothing was covered.
Wow.
You know, insurance
Nothing.
companies, they'll do anything. They'll be like, well, we insure cars, but not blue cars. Sorry.
It was crazy. And so, like, you know, we're a bunch of guys in our early 20s.
Yeah.
And, like, that gear, we, like, when you're in your early 20s, that's a lot of money to save
Yeah.
up for all that stuff. So we were just like, what do we do now? But it ended up all being fine. So,
Oh.
yeah.
Oh.
So that's one time.
Okay.
You're like, I tried. Didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
Yeah.
And you've lived on the west coast of Canada your whole life?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have earthquake insurance?
So I can't remember.
But
Okay.
you read the
Exactly.
100-page document.
But here's what I do remember. When we first bought our house, I remember my father-in-law, like, that was one of the things he elbowed his way in and was like, you better have it. And I was like, okay. So I think we do.
Okay.
I think.
Jeremy's going to go home and check tonight.
Yeah, he's going to
Yeah.
check it tonight. You guys are all at home being like, do we have that, honey? Like,
Because the big one's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody. Yeah.
That's what my teacher kept telling us.
What? I know.
Under the desk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
yeah.
All
So
the drills.
we have a lot of clients come out from Ontario, and we have to tell them like, oh yeah, you see how this room is set up, like, you know, not to put your bed under the window, you know, to like, they're, you know, and they're like, oh, what do you mean? And I'm like, you know, you have to anchor your furniture, and they have no idea what we're talking about. So I give them like a little rundown, a little bit about that, because I believe in being prepared. Like I'm not like full prepper, but I'm on my way.
Pretty close.
I'm pretty like I like to be careful.
You're pretty preppy.
I'm a safety bear.
95%
Yeah.
pepper.
So we have earthquake insurance because in my head, I'm like, if I don't have earthquake insurance or if I don't have insurance at all, doesn't matter if it's auto, doesn't matter if it's house, the day that my insurance expires and I don't have it renewed, that is the day that my house burns to the ground.
Right.
Like, that is my mentality behind that because it's in place for a reason. And we're going to get into that a little bit. But before we do, Kyle, you used to be an insurance broker, which when you told me that the other day, it was really surprising. You're a man of many hats. So I'd like you to tell me a little bit about that. And I know that you've seen some stuff because you're a property manager and you go into a lot of units, a lot of tenanted properties. Lots of stuff can happen, especially if people don't care about the houses as much as they would if it was their own. I know that's unfair, a little bit unfair to say, but it happens because we don't talk about the average person. We talk about like the extremes.
Yeah.
So Kyle, tell me a little bit about your insurance history background. And
I worked prior to Western buying out Coast Capital Insurance. I was offered a job with Coast Capital. I did leave when Western took over. It just wasn't a company I wanted to work for. The hours were a little bit strenuous, considering that they took the broker or the office rather, and decided it would be open till about 8-9 o'clock on a Sunday.
okay.
And the office was in Vancouver.
Oh.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
So I lost the ability to transit. I was just like, you know what, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
I tried it. I went through all the training. I think at my GIE license I could reactivate it tomorrow if I was looking at it the other day. I was like, no. The answer is no. I have
more things.
Temptation Island.
I have a couple insurance brokers that I can call anytime, any
Right.
day, for a variety of things, and they'll always take the time to answer questions, which is great. And I will leave that in their hands because what I know from when I did it, things are different too, right? That
Yeah.
back then, a strata water deductible was $25K or $20, and now it's $100.
Yeah.
Now you've got excess insurance if you want to meet earthquake deductibles and stratas.
That's right.
Water claims. Part of the reason why insurance has gotten so high and why we had a strata insurance crisis was water claims now cost like 3 times as much to fix as they did 10 years ago.
That's right.
Right.
I don't know why that is, frankly, but it's just what it is, and there's a lot more of them.
Yeah.
There's so many more stratas.
It's
Yeah.
like it's almost like when we had the leaky condo crisis. They started building buildings really well again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were like, wow, we should really fix our stuff. And then suddenly 2010 came around and they're like,
Let's
let's
build them
just
quickly.
let's bring in a building that's flat packed on a trailer, tilted up together, and use the cheapest bidder on every single component.
Yeah.
And I've had on my own condo insurance claims. One I never ended up needing to activate.
Okay.
And the other one I did. And as a property manager, I have had insurance claims on units. And I've had tenants cancel their insurance without telling us, which was actually a really sad story because of what it meant to the tenant. Likewise, we've seen incidents where there's damage in units, and we were dealing with one just this week, where the damage actually doesn't meet the landlord's insurance deductible, so the landlord has to
Okay.
pay for the fix out of pocket.
Oh,
Yeah, so we're stuck trying now to recoup from the person who caused the damage.
Right.
And it wasn't our tenant, so we can't just
Oh.
sit them down and be like, we're calling your insurance.
Yeah.
It's the person upstairs, and then we inspected their unit on the water leak, and they'd already
Yeah.
cleaned up the water, so the strata investigated and couldn't prove where the water came from. So it's just
So that's a lot more
big-
complicated.
big
well,
whole
because
thing.
everything gets investigated and fingers get pointed in so many different directions because nobody
Yeah.
wants to pay.
Yeah, and
right?
that's it's almost easier to deal with damage when it exceeds an insurance deductible, because there's one group of people you don't mess with, and that's insurance.
Right.
They will spend $100,000 in legal fees to kill you on a $5,000 claim because it's just what they do. They have
Yeah.
in-house litigation teams,
They're
and
set up for it.
Yeah.
and by slapping down frivolous claims at a small
Yeah.
dollar amount, they protect themselves in the bigger ones too.
Right.
It's
because
just a
if they
policy.
set up precedents, then
Yeah, if
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, yeah, pay me $5K, whatever, and they do, and that was, but ICBC was having that problem, and that's why we've seen an overhaul of what they're doing.
Yeah.
what's the worst insurance claim that you've ever come across?
Okay, that one.
Oh, he knows.
He knows. He's like, I think about it every night.
Yeah.
It was a horror story. It was, so I am at a bowling alley at midnight in White Rock.
Did anyone hold on?
Nice.
Did anyone see the story starting that way?
No.
Now
But
you're
I'm a
painting us a
big
picture.
fan.
And
All
I
the good ones
get
started bowling alleys.
and I get a text from a tenant. It's a text. I'm like, it says, "Hey Kyle, just so you know, some water came up back up out of the sink. The Strata's here with a plumber. It's okay. They've cleaned it up. Everything's good." Strata didn't call me. The tenant did, and she was just heading it off.
Okay.
I'm like, okay. I call her, no answer. Call her again, no answer. And it's now 1:00 in the morning. I'm like, okay, you know what? She says everything's fine. I called the Strata emergency line, and they paged the property manager, who didn't deem me to be an emergency because the emergency mitigation had been dealt with from their perspective.
Okay.
Sunday comes and goes. I do a drive-by. There's no restoration trucks or anything there. I'm like, okay, you know, and the tenant doesn't answer the door. All right, you know what? Things are probably okay.
Yeah.
Get a call Monday morning, 8:30. Hey, we're here and your tenant's refusing us access. We need to rip the kitchen out.
What?
Not only did a little bit of water back up out of the sink, it actually came over the countertop, spread out, and it was black water.
Oh my gosh.
So when you're in a condo building, all the kitchens
Yeah.
in a particular stack usually share a particular
Yeah.
downpipe. Same thing with toilets.
Yeah, that's right.
So when you have a clog in that bottom P-trap,
Yeah.
and somebody upstairs is running their dishwasher or something, all that water will eventually bubble up, and the
Yeah.
guy on the first floor is the one who just
No.
gets nailed.
Yeah.
So Kyle, your tenant won't open the door for us. She said everything's fine. We cleaned it up, but really, the kitchen has to go. Like there's
Destroyed.
There's an air scrubber running in there right now, and the restoration guys have respirators on.
Oh my
Well, yeah, because it's
gosh.
black water.
And I'm like, what? Oh, and it's a furnished rental too, which is which is even worse because your actual ability to go after furniture is really, really low. So I'm like, all right, I'll be there in. I was here at the time, and I was like, I'll be there in 20 minutes. It's roughly how long it takes me to drive there. I grabbed my set of keys from the box.
Yeah.
On my way there, I get there. My key no longer works. She has changed the locks.
No way.
Yeah. It's a ground floor condo. She's changed the locks. I'm like, this, I won't swear on your podcast.
We
feel
have Dave
free.
Bawa on here.
Okay, that's
It's
fair.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm mad at this point,
Yeah.
and I'm like, all right, I'm going to try something. If not, I'm going to have a locksmith here in an hour. And like,
Yeah.
I'm going to kill her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
you're making
bad
this
things are going to
impossible.
happen
Yeah.
here. Because this is not like, insurance has a very specific thing called the duty to mitigate.
Yeah.
So if we don't get to work in that
Yeah.
unit,
Right away.
you could void the owner's insurance. And I was already
Wow.
annoyed that the Strata had waited till, like the restoration companies had waited till Monday to actually begin demolition work. And that they had allowed the tenant to stay in the unit.
Was she inside there?
She went to work, but she had a dog. Dog was off-site. So I walked around to the ground floor. She had a window slightly ajar in her bedroom, and I broke into this unit.
Yeah.
It was one of the stupidest things I've ever
You
done.
lawfully accessed the unit.
I had a right to enter.
Yep.
Just the law doesn't say you have to enter using a door.
He was doing a wellness check. Yeah.
Got in and should have been wearing a mask. The place is
no.
thrashed. There's already mold growing on stuff on the counter. You can see that she's packed out a good chunk of her clothes already, and it stinks. Like, okay, this is not good. I open the door, let restoration in, say, you guys get to work, do whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
And I go to Rona and buy a new lock kit.
Oh, yeah.
Swap the locks on her.
Yeah.
Secure the unit, because that's our job. Start mitigation. And then post a notice on the door, hey, locks have been changed, call for reaccess, but we really have to talk about this.
Yeah.
She calls and I'm like, hey, like, you can't be in there. She's like, oh, they said it was safe with an air scrubber. It's like, no, they didn't. They're in there wearing respirators and you won't have a kitchen.
Yeah.
You need to call your insurance company that I've seen a deck page for.
Yeah.
Like, I know that you at least had insurance. She's like, oh, I canceled it a month ago. I didn't want to keep paying for it. I'm like, well, you can't stay there.
Oh, no.
So now she's in a destroyed unit without insurance,
She can't live there.
So
She can't.
and she's trying to live there still.
tenancies, she's trying to because
Because
from
she
her
knows she
perspective, if I force her out, it's making her effectively homeless. So now she's tried to pitch the blame on me, and ultimately it's, I'm sorry, I have an obligation to the owner.
Yeah.
I have to do this. I
Yeah.
can't have you in there.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you a key. I'm going to meet you there and you can retrieve your belongings.
yeah.
And we go, and she's like, you're making me homeless, and it's just this big thing. And it's like, no, I'm not. Like, I know you have a boyfriend. Go stay there. Technically have to give a tenant first right of refusal after that, but
Sure.
we didn't because she lied to us about canceling her insurance.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
And I
yeah,
was
she
very
breached-
transparent about that. I'm like, I'm not going to tell you this in writing, but you're not ever coming back here.
Well, especially when someone's like, hey, this happened. Everything's fine. It's good. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Oh, that blackmailed. Oh, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Okay, gets even more complicated.
Oh.
The landlord
How?
Yeah.
never told the insurance company that they tenanted the unit.
Oh, no.
no.
So
We'd
you didn't
only,
have renter's insurance.
we'd only been looking after it for 6 months. We took it over in between a
Yeah.
tenant. But even when she had her previous tenant in the unit, they had never informed the insurance company.
Okay, this might be. Does that void your insurance, Kyle?
It could.
Okay.
It really depends on who your adjuster is.
You have
Oh.
to tell if it's a tenanted property, like your insurance company needs to know because they have to pay the rent if something goes
Yeah.
wrong.
So
Well-
the landlord did not have loss of rental income insurance as a result.
Okay.
Thankfully, they did step in and covered her betterments and improvements because she had gorgeous vinyl plank floor that technically waterproof, but as soon as that black water
Yeah.
touched it, it's
Right.
got to get
Hazard.
chopped up.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's technically waterproof. In a normal water leak, you'd be okay. You could just mop it up. In this case, no, it like chops onto the ground. It's gone.
yeah.
So, and she's freaking out and she's crying with me on the phone for like an hour. She's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't afford the mortgage. And it's this whole thing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, no. So now it's in our contracts with owners that you keep insurance on the property. And if you don't, that's
Oh,
on you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And we have this conversation. This is a story I tell almost every one of my owners when I meet with them for the first time. Like, you need to tell them this. You need a qualified insurance broker to get good advice on.
Yeah.
And before we even sign a lease, you need to sit with somebody. And that doesn't mean going, and there's nothing wrong with going to,
Clicking the button online.
Yeah.
You're approved.
yeah,
Yeah.
Square
love that.
Square
Thank
One's
you,
great
Katie.
for like
Yeah.
tenant insurance, but like the guys I use, they'll go through it line by line, and
Yeah.
they'll make sure that stuff like your golf clubs are scheduled properly, and
Right.
that
Yeah.
you have art and it's appraised, and you have musical equipment that's properly valued, because there's limitations on some of this stuff too.
All this is doing is reminding me of all the stuff that I don't think is included in my insurance policy right now.
Number one is wedding rings.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, it could be time for an upgrade.
So if like yours and mine probably not that bad.
No.
But like when I was selling it, we had $1,000 limit on coverage for items like wedding rings that weren't scheduled. So you got a $5,000 two-piece wedding band set. You got a $1,000 deductible. You lose it, well, you're not changing. You're not getting coverage for it at all.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
And stuff like that is covered when it's in and out of the house. But
Yeah.
long
So
story
much
short.
fine print with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
But long story short, in this case, it was just horrific. The unit did end up getting fixed, did ultimately end up getting re-tenanted. It worked out in the end. It was just very stressful for everybody.
Yeah.
And that is why landlords and tenants and everybody needs to have insurance. Because
So-
this was, oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, on that note, because that is kind of sad for everybody involved, and we see that online sometimes where people's house burns down and they can't have insurance.
Or they might not have insurance, and you see like GoFundMe's get posted up, and I've always wondered,
Right.
okay, does that person have insurance, and if so, does that cover everything? And I was speaking with someone this morning, and I learned I always assume that if you have insurance, everything's looked after. You don't have to worry, and it's all going to be fine. And I'm learning that it's not. This one lady I was speaking to, there was a flood, and it wasn't too bad. They're having to pack up the house. It's gonna a lot of stuff's gonna have to get ripped out, and she has insurance, but something that's not covered is called like a pack up fee. Like there's all these hidden fees, and the fee to pack up her 2-bed condo was quoted at $15,000.
Because they pack out all your stuff and they have to store it. For the
Yeah, they
duration of
pack it,
Right.
store it, and dry it, and then you have to go in and see what's salvageable. But it's like because they're handling something hazardous, it's not a regular move fee, and it's so $15,000, and she had insurance and it wouldn't cover that.
That's crazy. Like, it makes you wonder, like, why even have insurance if it's not going to cover that? I'm going against what Kyle said. Screw it.
Yeah.
I always see it online. Like, you got like someone who's like, oh, this person couldn't afford insurance, but could they not afford, or could they afford not to have it? You know, if they lose everything they have.
Totally.
And then you get the GoFundMes that go in, and everyone like pitches in money, save this family. They didn't have insurance, and then you sit there and you're like, well, then why does anyone have insurance if GoFundMes are just going to come in and rescue these people? Not that it shouldn't be done. Don't get me wrong. Like, be generous where you can, of course. But then I'm like, okay, well, and then other people are like, oh, well, do they have insurance? And they go, yes, but it's not. It doesn't cover everything. It kind of makes you wonder, like, what is that fine print? Because I'm sure there is stuff in there.
Yeah.
At the same time, I believe that you should have insurance, and I've had clients that have flat out refused to get insurance, which is really awkward because I'm like, okay, like, but you've been told, you know.
Yeah.
who knows?
There is a reason why most mortgages will require you to have it.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and my issue is like, I'll tell them like, hey, look, you got to have this on before you go. It's part of our like, it's our hard print. Like when we sent an email, we've got a templated email. We know that sucker's going out, that we've done our due diligence.
Reminder, that insurance that we made sure you got a quote on during sound removal,
Yes.
it has to be in place by this day and this time. And
Yeah. So we
reminder
know
again,
we're at least covered because
Yeah.
again, you know, like on our other podcast, you can't force a
we
client.
can't make them get insurance.
Cannot make them do it.
Yeah.
Jeremy, going back to you, say your home's for sale. Okay, say your home is for sale. You've listed your house.
Yeah.
Okay, and you've sold it, and you're just waiting in that period between selling it and actually moving out. So it's like that time between completion. Okay.
No man's
Right.
land.
Yeah. So say you've got that. If that's going to happen, what would you do if a buyer asked to work on your home prior to them moving in? Like, say they were like, oh, can you get some new gutters on your house? We don't want to do it when we move in. We want it to happen before. What would you do?
So I've sold my place. They're just waiting to move in.
They're
and
just-
they
You're
want to start
living there
working
still.
on it.
You're still living there, and they want to like work on the house prior to.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. No, I don't think so.
We're just gonna send our guy in. Like he'll only take a few days. Like, could you just let him in? And we want to get ahead of this stuff, and it's so hard to line up trades. And could you just let us?
It's going to be a no for me. But here's why. So we moved from Willoughby to Aldergrove, the house we're in now, have 3 kids. And that time leading up to a move is chaos.
Yeah.
So I am not adding a single thing that doesn't need to be added to my life during that period. So I'm like, no, I don't need people coming in and working on the house. Like there is a part of me that's like, you know, if I was in that position, I would love it if the person was kind enough to let me start working on the house.
Yeah.
But I don't think I would.
Okay. What if it was a situation where you had a really, really bad roof and the new buyers wouldn't be able to get home insurance unless the roof is redone, and it doesn't affect the inside of the house, but they can't get insurance unless the roof is redone, and you're not displaced, but you're going to have like, you know, that roofing company up on your roof and it's not even your roof anymore.
Yeah.
They're paying for it.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a matter of the deal actually getting done, like if it's a deal breaker on the sale of the house and it doesn't displace us, I think that's different from like kind of more aesthetic things, or
I'd really
right?
like to come in and paint this white.
Right. I think
Yeah.
like there's a distinction there. If they're like, we will buy the house if you let us replace the roof before we move in, I'd be like, yeah, hell yeah, do what you want.
So I've had two situations. One, we actually did have buyers that had to replace a roof because and the home was empty, so it wasn't a big deal.
Right.
But the sellers couldn't afford the home anymore, and they couldn't afford to replace the roof. So there was actually water spots on the ceilings, but my buyers wouldn't be able to purchase it and have insurance unless they redid the roof. But I had to have all these things in the contract, like in the event it doesn't complete, then they have to reimburse them and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Also the fact that the companies that work on the roof, they have to be insured. They have to have their own insurance because
Right.
I wouldn't want the seller who might have property insurance to be liable for anything happening on their property, right? When they didn't hire the company to begin with. And this is what we forget. It gets intricate. Okay?
Yeah. Because you're hiring a professional to go do work on a property that you don't own or have you don't own it yet.
No. And recently we had and I felt bad for the agent because he's just forwarding on his buyer's requests, but his buyer was a bonehead, okay? I'm saying bonehead because that was what the agent called his client. He goes, this guy is a bonehead, okay? And the client was asking for my sellers to allow his tradesperson in to redo their upstairs bathroom because they don't want to have to move in and have that done, and because they wouldn't be able to use it for a couple days. Like my seller's house is only got 2 bathrooms, one upstairs and one downstairs, and they have kids. And he is expecting to have a tradesperson in there so that my family that is in there cannot use it. And I messaged I honestly didn't even take it to my client. I just replied and I was like, this is inappropriate.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's such an inappropriate request, right, Kyle? Like,
You're going to let a tradesperson that you don't know in the house where you have kids
Yeah.
well,
for multiple days, not only depriving yourself of access to a bathroom because somebody can't delay their move a few days.
yeah, but
but-
you didn't hire him.
Is it a plumber or Uncle Jim?
Well,
Yeah, and is that person licensed? Do they have insurance?
Yeah,
like
totally.
it's
Well,
stranger danger. It could
yeah.
be anything.
yeah, they put the toilet back on, didn't seat the seal right, flush it, and it's down
Yeah.
in the basement ceiling, and now you don't have any bathrooms.
And then what
Right.
happens if that person causes a problem? Like say they were like, yeah, sure, come on in, renovate that bathroom, and then they hire Joe Blow without a license, and he goes in there and say he doesn't put on that toilet properly, and it destroys the house. And what if it caused so much water damage that the new buyers are like, yeah, we'll just walk away from our deposit?
Totally.
Right? Like you can't have that happen.
No.
Okay. So the other thing that we have is people always asking to store their belongings
Yes.
in garages.
Yeah.
Right, Sheila?
Yeah.
Like what did we have there?
We have, we'd really like to be able to start moving stuff into the garage a few days sooner. So, like, we don't have to get the bigger moving van or, like, we can do a couple carloads. Could we just start putting stuff into the garage? It'll be easy, right?
And you think like, oh, the garage. I mean, it's not in the main house.
Yeah.
It really shouldn't be a big deal. And I'm like, no, absolutely not. Because who is liable for that stuff? What happens if it gets stolen? What happens if the buyer is like, oh, I had a grand piano here and now it's gone? Of course, kind of an extreme example because you'd notice. But you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
it's kind of things like, what happens to those items? Who's liable for those items? Whose insurance is covering those items? It gets messy like so fast.
So fast. So I actually have a story from an agent that I work with
Okay.
whose sellers were super kind and let the buyers start to move their stuff in.
It is a big no-no, but go on.
That's very nice of them.
Right? Very nice. Sellers leave one night in their truck and thinks he hits the garage door button. Didn't, so the garage is left wide open. Everything gets stolen out of the garage.
Oh, no.
And everyone was suing each other.
Oh.
And it was just like, it got messy so fast.
So
Yikes.
let this be a lesson to you. Kyle, have you ever had anybody ask to store an item in a unit or put your clients at a liability for insurance or?
For rental units, we require proof of insurance prior to key handover. And we make sure they pay rent. You don't get you don't basically don't get free access to the unit.
Okay.
Because let's say it's June 25th. A tenant's lease doesn't start till July 1st. If they don't pay for that, the unit's technically vacant still, regardless if we've let them store stuff in there. And you're right.
Right.
Whose insurance will cover that? Does the tenant have insurance?
Yeah.
Right.
And even that they say they have insurance.
They say,
it's a rabbit
and
hole.
like some insurance companies will email us and let us know, but like I'm like, no, show me the deck page.
Yeah.
A good thing about personal contents insurance is typically it will cover it when it's off premises. So if they store it there and it goes missing or gets destroyed in a flood, knock on wood,
Yeah.
or stolen out of a car, it will get covered. But we typically like unless they're paying to be there, we don't let them in to store stuff.
Yeah.
It just, especially if it's a detached house,
Yeah.
like stratas, they're always kind of insured,
Yes.
Right.
a little bit. by law.
I've had a client actually ask because they've been like, oh, we're gonna move out early because we're moving across the country, so we'll be out sooner. What day can I cancel my services? And we're running through this, and they're like, okay, and I can cancel my insurance on this date. I'm like, no,
Yeah, you got to
you
keep your
still
insurance.
own the home, and it's now vacant for a week before you're moving. So like, do you have someone checking on it? Do you need me to come check on the property? But you can't just cancel your insurance just because your stuff isn't in there.
We had a situation recently where we sold someone's house. The home was vacant, and even though there was a family member that checked on the house every single week, the insurer said that the house was no longer under home insurance, even though that they had been there. So reading policy about being vacant is so important, especially if you're handing over keys early.
Yeah.
Because like you guys are saying, so Kyle brought up a good point. Like, stratas are kind of always insured, but the problem with it is that a lot of people don't understand what exactly is insured. And the other day there was this crazy situation where bullets kind of flew, hit the side of a townhouse, and there was this forum on Facebook where people were like, who's paying for the gunshot, damage in the side of the strata? And people are commenting and they're like, oh, it's got to be the criminal, but like what? And then it's got to be the guy who got shot, like what? And then it's got to be the owner of the unit. And it's like, well, what if it was tenanted? And then someone was like, the RCMP should pay for it, which was my favorite. It's so absurd. They're like, the RCMP should pay for it. Like, the RCMP is going to pay, like, I just don't understand.
They don't have funding for that.
No, like, it's wild, like, the suggestions, because people didn't know what was covered.
Yeah.
So we're going to ask Jeremy our last final question to you. Jeremy, do you have home insurance?
I do, yes.
Excellent. Kyle, do you have home insurance?
Oh, yeah.
Sheila, do you have home insurance?
You bet.
And I do because I'm a safety bear. Okay, takeaway here, guys. Know your insurance policies. Know your insurance policies. Go to a professional. Agents don't give advice on insurance policies other than to get it, make sure that it is reviewed and when it should start. Accidents happen. That's why we have insurance. But people need to know what they're buying into, and they need to know what the deductibles are and what's coverage. It's so important, especially if it is a rental. And if you are not sure, get in touch with Kyle Grant. He will help you out. And be careful out there. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening to Spilling the Tea, a real estate podcast with Kristy Macero and Sheila Maycheck.